Bero. Bero,
Hey.
yeah, hi. Could you say a couple words about you? So where are you from?
Yeah.
Which projects you are working on?
Sure. I'm Bero from Switzerland, and at work I'm working at Linaro on optimizing Android on ARM architectures mostly, and outside of work, which is why I'm here, I'm working on OpenMandriva, where I'm doing development, and I've recently been appointed president of the association. Of course, as someone who is doing a Linux distribution, I have patches in all sorts of packages ranging from the kernel to KDE, so my patches are all over the system. I wouldn't call myself a major contributor to any of those projects, but patches all over.
Okay, so today you gave a talk. So could you explain a bit what this talk about?
Yeah, today we talked about porting OpenMandriva from x86 to a variety of architectures. OpenMandriva is a desktop-focused distribution, so obviously up until recently there wasn't all that much interesting hardware other than x86 available. But these days that's changing. There's quite fast ARC64 boxes becoming available. Some phones are almost good enough to run a full desktop on. And RISC-V is another interesting CPU architecture that's coming up. It's not really super fast yet, but it's completely open, so it's really interesting for that. And it's also the first board that can run Linux is actually fast enough to run some basic desktop tasks.
By the way, you said that the performance was not so good, but what is your expectation about performance in the future? So
in the future, I expect that RISC-V will do a lot of catching up because it's open, so it will attract some attentions from the outside world. Obviously, ARM devices are becoming faster all the time. x86 is obviously going to be faster as well, so we are certainly not dropping that. But it's definitely a good idea to target all the architectures. Even if there was one that was clearly better than the others, it's always good to have some competition. Monopolies usually result in the monopolist doing bad things. So we see it as one of our tasks to make sure that monopolies are avoided.
By the way, what is your idea when the desktop beats the Linux UI? I mean, when your UI or Linux UI, OpenUI will beat the Windows desktops?
That's a good question. I've been saying it should be doing it for about 20 years, but it mostly hasn't happened, and I think it's not the technology that's keeping it back, because if you look at a modern Linux system like OpenMandriva 4 or also some others, it is actually user-friendly. I've installed it on my neighbors' machines who are old people who don't really have any clue about technology, and they can use it just fine. So the problem is probably just that Windows and Apple have established themselves with the hardware makers so much that it's hard to get a machine that doesn't have their stuff preloaded. And while Linux is actually a much better solution, their stuff is good enough to not make people run away and change. So I'm not very optimistic about being able to really grab the desktop anytime soon. But maybe now with mobile phones and tablets increasingly running something that is Linux-based, it will switch over to the desktop a little more as well. And maybe people will realize that the NSA is spying on them through Microsoft and Apple and look for an alternative.
So, by the way, I'm working for universities, and a couple of years ago we switched our educational process, switched all our machines to the Linux, and actually young people are easily change their mind, and they easily work with Linux desktop and Linux CLI tools, no problem. There is no problem for young people, but for for people who is not in this area, not in IT area, it's hard because they just take some thing or some computer from the shop and just start working with it. Yeah. So I have heard that you had some project in Ethiopia for some satellite TV, right? Is it correct?
Yes, that's actually two kind of different projects. So back when I was working for Blank Page Eduvision, unfortunately that company doesn't exist anymore. We had a project in Ethiopia putting the school books on their computers essentially. The problem there is that the school books are horribly outdated and there's not a lot of money, so they can't get new books all the time. So we came in with the idea of giving everyone a cheap piece of hardware. Initially that was based on an iPac 5500, one of the first PDAs that could run Linux. And then they could just update the books over the satellite transmissions.
Okay.
And then when we got there, we found that some development aid project had already been there, installed big screen TVs in the classrooms, and set everything up so they could use school TV broadcasts from India. But unfortunately, that project had no idea about time zones. So by the time those school TV broadcasts were on, the Ethiopian kids weren't actually in the school, and those TVs were completely useless. So I ended up fixing that by installing a couple of Linux boxes that would just record the broadcasts and
distribute
display them
the classes
next day.
Okay. So is it connected or related somehow to the Negropontos project with his OLPC? You know this?
Yes, we actually installed our book reading tool on some of those PCs as well, but it was only used in one school before the company went out of business because we didn't have the funding that was needed to do it. So there's only, in the end, it's 3 schools that benefited. One has the iPads, one has the old PCs, one has the TVs.
Yeah.
It was a fun project, and I hope to get back there at some point.
Yeah, okay. So my last question for you. So if I'm a young person, if I'm just a first year student or maybe older, so what would be your advice for me if I want to get in open source development and if I want to participate some open source projects? What is your advice?
Well, my first advice would be to just start doing it. There's in most projects you might be interested in have mailing lists and forums and everything, and accept patches and bug trackers. Obviously, at first, if you don't really know what you're doing, you're maybe a little scared of posting something and then being told, no, that's not how to do it. But that's something you just have to accept, learn by doing it. Do it, patch something that you are interested in, submit it. Maybe your patch will get accepted, maybe it won't get accepted, but in that case you will at least get usable feedback for the next time. And another nice thing is to join a community that's open to everyone, like, well, let's say OpenMandriva, there's also others, but we are certainly looking for new contributors, even if they are not experienced, and we will help them out with getting their patches ready and submitting them.
But I know that some open source community are not friendly to newcomers. They can just don't answer the emails with stupid questions and so on. So how to overcome this border? So if I am young and I have very little experience, but I'm dreaming about the commit or send some patches to the Linux kernel. So what I have to do, it's too hard to reach this level that community will listen for me.
Yeah, that can be a little tricky. I mean, there's obviously friendly people in every community who will help out, but sometimes people are just too busy. And yeah, one thing is really if something bad happens to you, if someone tells you your patch sucks or anything, don't take it seriously. It's not an attack on you, it's an attack on the particular patch, and if you revise it and send it back, actually the same person who might have been root initially may become your best friend in getting that new revision posted.
Okay.
So just accept that some people will not reply to you at all. It's not because they hate you, it's because they are busy.
Yeah, I understand.
Accept that some people are not going to be super friendly. It's not because they hate you, it's because they disagree with something you did and you can fix it. Even if they want you to do something that you don't agree with. I mean, even Linus Torvalds isn't always right. I mean, you can...
Yeah, it sounds like never give up and just move forward
Exactly.
towards your dream, right?
Don't give up, and maybe try to find a friendly community to start out with, and then once you have more experience you can also move into communities that might be a little more scary at the beginning.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it was a good interview. Yeah.